in the brisk Alaskan skies. A Coast Guard helo pushes through the fog to medevac a man crushed in a motorcycle accident.
As that visibility decreases, my pucker factor's starting to go up because we're over water, there's terrain around us, there's vessels, but we know we have a life to go get, and we're gonna do our best to do that.
When emergency strikes, the Coast Guard ventures into Canada to rescue a man with a severe brain injury.
How's he doing, Chris? That dude's conscious? Yeah, but he's kind of out of it. Just keep our fingers crossed.
And when the distress call rings out, a chopper crew is diverted to a sinking ship.
He found the bow hold of his boat almost 3/4 full and still rising, so he's still taking on water.
The vast Alaskan wilderness, a place where beauty is cloaked by danger. Here, every day, the highly trained men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard risk their lives to save others. America's deadliest waters are protected by Coast Guard Alaska.
All right, cool, guys. Mission requirements, medevac of a 29-year-old male, motor vehicle accident out of Chignik. We've got a gentleman who's been involved in a personal vehicle accident. Injury reports, possible broken legs, broken bones, and a possible head injury, which is the one that we're the most concerned about. To keep the conversation going, keep us all awake, we're operating in that red zone period. It's the middle of the night. It's one of the riskiest times to fly anywhere in the country, let alone up here in Alaska. You guys have any questions right now? So, awesome.
Air.
Air 10.
Air 10 from Air, just got off the phone. Sounds like Chignik Bay for sure is where you guys are picking up the patient.
Roger, Chignik.
The 6010 just got airborne. Their plan is to depart here out of Kodiak, fly direct over Kodiak Island to Chignik Bay. It's a remote place. Not a lot of aircraft can even get in there. It's a small strip, it's unmaintained, so the Coast Guard helicopter is ideal for this situation.
Holy hell. It went off, man. Dog was barking, baby screaming, mama's like, what's going on?
Welcome to Kodiak, darling.
Yeah, no, man.
So this is the first duty night for my co-pilot, Lieutenant Zach Vocek. Just got here from the Pacific Northwest, so he's got a lot of experience flying in some of the goo down south. But first duty night in Kodiak, and sure enough, pager's going off, and we've got a long-range medevac.
Fog patch is creeping in here. Yeah. Yeah, I figure before we get into all that mess, I'll try to slow down a little bit. Sounds like a plan.
This time of year in Kodiak, it's going to start getting light early, and as we're flying towards Chignik, we can see on the horizon that the weather is starting to deteriorate. What that looks like is just looks like a wall of fog, and you're going to have to either fly into it, above it, or below it.
Looks like we got some pretty thick weather off the nose that we're going to be trucking into.
We took off out of Kodiak, and the weather was decent in Kodiak, pretty much sky clear and great visibility. And around the corner, 10 miles later, and the weather is just completely different.
It's kind of crazy that we just have this wall of weather in front of us.
You're staring at the mountains, you're staring at the water. That's how we navigate. We got to see where we're going, especially up here in Alaska. And so in this case, as that visibility decreases, my pucker factor's starting to go up because we're over water, there's terrain around us, there's vessels, there's stuff to run into, and we're pretty low at this point. But we know we have a life to go get, and we're going to do our best to do that.
I guess the ultimate goal, whatever you guys do to minimize our time on deck, is probably the most important thing. We're going to be down the gallons pretty closely on this one. All right, I'm going to break out the letter then.
220 miles, that's already pushing the limits of the H-60. We have very limited time that we can spend at the airport, basically because we're low on fuel. So as soon as we're on deck, parking brake on, Ralph is out the door to see where the survivor is.
The individual, he was in a lot of pain, and he had a possible back injury, so we had to be as delicate as possible. So we lifted him onto the backboard, strapped him down, and we got him out of there. I hooked him to our Pro Pack, which monitors his vital signs, taking his blood pressure, his pulse, his respirations.
Sector Anchorage, this is Coast Guard Helo 6010. We picked up the patient and we are heading back towards Kodiak at this time.
Sure enough, as soon as we leave Chignik, northeast, back into the fog, and we're at about 100, 200 feet above the water, you know, hoping for better visibility.
He was obviously in a lot of pain. I was concerned with what was going on with his head. He did have a pretty deep gash above his left eye. So I was more concerned about if he had a head wound, because you can't fly above 1,000 feet because of intracranial pressure.
Guys, we're climbing right now, back up through about 500 feet. Is that head wound, does he have like a skull fracture or anything like that?
He has one spot that's just like, looks like he got punched in the face.
Okay. Roger.
I think the morphine is starting to wear off on him. He's feeling his leg pretty good.
Let's look at the flight plan, see if we can cut a little time off. But can't climb, so.
Basically, I didn't want to climb to anything more than 1,000 feet based on the nature of the injuries of the survivor.
Hooked him up with oxygen, which helps a lot to ease the pain a little bit.
He just told me he's worried about losing his leg.
You obviously feel bad for the individual. He was just in a constant state of pain.
He's still looking good with all his vitals and stuff.
Okay.
He's still in a lot of pain. It comes in waves, so high oxygen seems to be helping him pretty good with that.
Visibility, beautiful thing. Here we go.
Just about halfway up the east side of Kodiak Island, just as quick as we punched into it, we flew right out of it, and then it was clear blue. Beautiful day up in Kodiak. So nice, I don't think anybody was going to believe me how bad it was on the south side. The Coast Guard as a whole is an amazing community because, like this case demonstrated, you can get woken up in the middle of the night, be told to go someplace you've never been before, not see where you're going in the process, and still manage to pull it off safely and bring, you know, a member of a small Alaskan village to a higher level of care. And ultimately, that makes this big state a small family. Kodiak circuit. Yep, that's good. Nice job.
My name is Joseph. I live in Homer, Alaska. My family's been here since who knows when, you know. I'm all 100% native. Was just going around a corner and gravel slipped and this bike wedged my foot underneath the peg. When I came to, I was in the helicopter. Well, I was very seriously injured. I was bleeding out of everywhere. Just felt great to hear the voice of a guy helping me. And I was very thankful for the Coast Guard. Thank you for helping us and our small communities out so much. Guyana Coast Guard.
Canadian Forces Comox, they're coming in today to do some training with us.
Are you guys in an hour?
In the future, if there is ever a need for both agencies to work with one another, these sorts of training opportunities will have proven very useful.
Today we got called to do a medevac from a cruise ship for a 24-year-old that's got some kind of a brain injury.
It's my first duty day in Alaska. It is also my very first R case.
That dude's conscious. He's kind of out of it. Just keep our fingers crossed.
How you doing? Dan Yumberg, nice to meet you. Good to have you guys here.
Yeah. Great, thanks. You guys really have a nice airfield here, right?
Yeah, oh, we love it. I'm Commander Dan Yumberg, Operations Officer at Air Station Sitka. Canadian Forces COMOX, they're coming in today to do some training with us. Got a few objectives that I wrote down. First and foremost, being able to discuss and share some of our SAR techniques, and then just open up lines of communication for the future.
My name's Carl Schouten. I'm a sergeant with the Royal Canadian Air Force. I'm stationed out of Comox in British Columbia. Coming up here and working with the Coast Guard, it's exchanging knowledge and ways of doing things, comparing their equipment to ours.
6034, we're preparing for takeoff. We're already done whenever you are.
We're going to take our helicopter out and do some boat hoisting and show how we do that.
Reporting for takeoff.
And we're going to take the Buffalo aircraft and throw some of our life-saving equipment out, show them how that's done.
We are airborne at this time. All right, we're going.
I'll have an opportunity today to be observing from the Buffalo, their fixed-wing aircraft.
Okay, coming up the left side of the aircraft. It's mostly the boat right there, right by the green buoy. He's doing his approach now. There he is, in the hover. Probably where he is now is probably good,
Yeah, the Canadian Forces, typically they'll deploy 2 SAR-techs to each vessel for every mission.
We're going to do a sequence to one of the Coast Guard vessels. The idea there is to lower our SAR-techs onto the boat while it's steaming forward.
It'll be myself going in first, and from there the hook goes back and forth to the aircraft.
The Coast Guard personnel on board will be watching us. Pilots are going to get me as close as possible to the boat. All I have to do is make sure that I get off the hook as quickly as possible.
I went into the boat and talked to the captain and told him I liked his boat. It's a really nice piece of equipment.
We're gonna go and shoot the pilots. Okay, come back and do it again.
One of the most useful parts about being up here is the fact that the COMOX AOR, or Area of Responsibility, actually overlaps the area covered by the Coast Guard. So in the future, if there is ever a need for both agencies to work with one another, these sorts of training opportunities will have proven very useful.
462 inbound for a message drop.
Where's the target?
It's on our nose, so you want 100 feet, correct?
Yeah. The drop will be downwind to the boat.
For the Coast Guard and the Canadian Forces, the message drop typically is a last-ditch effort to get communications with a vessel.
Stand by to release message. Release message now. Message is away, clear time to turn your discussion.
Our C-130s and the Canadian Forces as well, they train these drops quite often.
Release message now.
It's a time process when we're deploying those things so as to be a certain amount of distance away from the vessel, draping the line over the vessel so they can retrieve it.
And Coast Guard staying 465. Yeah, we're just going to set it for a landing here. What are the current winds? Wind is 200 at 7. Roger, what was the flight of flowing that traffic in? I think 465.
One of the reasons that we put together this exercise is we recognize that sharing a border together, that we may be working on a search and rescue mission together. In the future, if we end up doing a mission together, it's just going to be that much easier.
It's very good to be able to work with the United States Coast Guard. I think the 2 services have a lot to learn from one another. It is a brotherhood.
Okay, pump's gotta come off.
Pump's off.
All right, sweet. Did you guys switch up after the litter? Lieutenant Commander Doug Atkins, Coast Guard Air Station Sitka, Alaska. And today we got called to do a medevac from a cruise ship actually off the coast of Canada, about 300 miles south of the air station, for a 24-year-old that's got some kind of a brain injury. So in this case, he's actually in Canadian waters. The rescue coordination centers in Alaska and Canada work together quite well, and it's not unusual for us to cross into the other's area if it makes sense. In this case, we are a good bit closer to the ship at this point than the Canadians are, so it makes sense for our asset to go get it.
My name is Lieutenant Chris Nixon. I'm a pilot here at Air Station Sitka. Right now, the weather up here in Sitka is looking pretty good. Of course, we're going to be moving offshore, plus the sheer distance of this case. We don't really have good weather reporting where we're heading. What we're trying to do is race the clock to get down there before it gets too dark.
Okay, Sector Juno, request to know the name of the vessel. Vessel name, Carnival Miracle. From Rescue 3 Gauge, Roger, vessel name, the Carnival Miracle. We'll talk to you guys too. Out.
My name's Jason Vaughn. I'm an AMT2 at Air Station Sitka. It's my first duty day in Alaska. It is also going to be my very first R case. En route to the cruise ship, my nerves were just going crazy. Flying down, I kept the door open. That's normally not a standard thing you do here in Sitka, but it's normal what we do in San Diego.
Do you mind if we get door speed real quick? Is the door open right now? Yes, sir. I like flying with the door open. I'm the San Diego guy.
En route, we configured the cabin to make it easier to get the patient inside the cabin.
603, this is a cruise ship Carnival Miracle. Carnival Miracle 038. We request you slow speed to 12 knots and request you clear the area for the hoist pump. How on that?
They had a new deck installed and it was very slippery. It was like roller skates on an ice skating rink. Luckily, they happen to have registered nurses on board, and so immediately I decide that one of their nurses is going to go with us.
Carnival Miracle 038. We request you slow speed and request you clear the area for the hoist pump. How on that? This is the captain. Well, copy. The fourth quarter is already clear. It will be the hoisting area.
Tonight we're launching on a medevac from a cruise ship that's actually down in Canadian waters, about 300 miles southwest of the air station. En route to the cruise ship, our weather started degrading. We started getting some rain squalls. So we ended up picking the cruise ship out only about 5 miles out visually.
I got so we'll do an orbit around the boat. Jason, we'll just get a good look, make sure that we're not going to blow any launch heads or anything off the back of the boat. Work for you, Jason? Yes, sir. Okay. Carnival Miracle, Carnival Miracle. On top, approximately 5 minutes. What is the condition of the patient at this time? Right now, the patient is stable. Stable, and he is not able to walk, is that correct? He's ready on the stretcher. 6038, we copy on the stretcher, and we'll advise you when we're ready to begin the hoisting. Copy that, stand by for you. All right, guys, start slowing down here. The boat's coming up.
As we make our approach to the vessel, it's different than our normal approach to the water because we're going to a point in space that's approximately anywhere from 150 to 200 feet above the water. We're just going to be hoisting from a lot higher altitude. It's challenging because once we move into position, we won't see our hoisting position. We don't see where the hoist hook is going to.
My name's Chris Belisle. I'm a Coast Guard rescue swimmer at Air Station Sitka. They had a new deck installed on the back of their boat, and it was wet and very slippery. It was like roller skates on an ice skating rink. As soon as I made contact, I went straight down on the ground. Got up quickly, and then from there on out, it was quickly getting all of our gear back down to the boat so I could take care of the patient.
You call me as you need, Jason. Yeah, that deck was slippery. I noticed it with the hard soles. He goes blowing across the deck. Yeah, he did. Everybody stay on his feet. 6038, 6038. Summer 38, go ahead. 6038, be advised that the patient is now having seizures. They're requesting to take a nurse with them, which I concur. And Summer from the 38, if possible, send the nurse first and get her situated before you get the patient.
Once I made contact with the medical doctor on the ship, he informed me that the patient had just stopped seizing. Luckily, they happen to have registered nurses on board, and so immediately I decide that one of their nurses is going to go with us because of her higher care of medicine. It was exciting for the nurse, but still kind of nerve-wracking. One of the things that she did tell me before she went up was that she was deathly afraid of heights, so I told her to close her eyes. Easiest way to get rid of it.
And I'm going to hold here until you get her in. Bring your nurse out of the cabin. All right, sir. Rescue complete, ready for a miracle recovery of the litter from mid-altitude. And hold. This is good.
So we had the nurse and the survivor in the helicopter. Now is the time to pick up the rescue swimmer.
This case is a fairly long-range case for a 24-year-old. It's got some kind of a brain injury. We've got the patient and our swimmer back on board, and now we're going to make best speed we can up to Ketchikan. So we're going to go straight to the helipad, meet the ambulance there to offload the patient, and that'll get the patient to care at the hospital as the quickest way possible.
You just had a little seizure there. Did you see that? His eyes started fluttering for like a good minute and a half. They're calling 10 miles of visibility. You gotta take out the ceiling, but sure we'll figure it out. Ready for approach. Ready for approach, sir. So you can see the pad coming in there at 2 o'clock? Come straight into the H here, pretty much. Roger, sir. Ease forward. Tail clear. And tail clear. Easy down. Easy down.
We had to land on the airport at the helispot and offload the patient. We only waited a couple minutes. It was a quick transfer over, a quick explanation of what we needed and what we did and what's going to happen. And then we were up and running again.
It feels great to get my first case, to see the guy with the CO2 mask over his face and to know that he was getting rescued to a better health of care. It was an awesome feeling.
Jason, our flight medic, he's new to the unit. He's coming from San Diego. He let us know that it was his first case. And it's just a testament to how we train in the Coast Guard fleet-wide, that here comes a member from a different unit, come up here on his first night of duty, he can pull a SAR case and almost pull the wool over the pilot's eyes that it's his first one, so it's pretty awesome.
And pouches.
Can I have gloves, please?
Yes, you may. Hot rod red, maybe?
I'm doing hot rod red.
Okay.
They fit me.
Hold on to this bike for me for a second.
I'm Lieutenant Chris Enixon. I'm a pilot here at Air Station Sitka, and today we're at the bike rodeo. The Rotary Club did a great job setting it up. They've got stations for every kid to check in and safety inspections. It's a little bit of chaos, but it's great having all the kids riding bikes around.
What's your bike's name?
Rocket ship.
Rocket Ship. That is the coolest name all day.
Any day that we can get all the kids wearing helmets and teach them a little bit about safety, it's a win-win for everybody. There's hot dogs, there's soda, and there's kids riding bicycles, so it's a good day.
You have to make sure your helmet's on. Salute yourself, because this part's your brain, so you need some space for your brain. So, like, if you do, it doesn't even damage your head at all.
We're kind of getting into spring and summer, and kids are going to be out on their bikes a lot more, so we want them to be safe and be aware of cars.
Oh, there goes a fish trap.
We just want to really thank the Coast Guard for allowing us to use the hangar and for their space and for them helping us and being partners with the Rotary Club to do this. Just knowing that even one more child is going to be safe out there riding their bike is worth what we do, and I'm sure that they feel the same way.
My bike is the fastest.
Cool. You got to pedal it really fast.
Okay, like this.
Like that, Pat.
They made a little park, and they made stop signs, and they made all kinds of stuff that were like obstacles. It looks like everyone's having a good time and having fun.
Before takeoff, check this crew part ready for takeoff. Ready for takeoff. Real quick, crew brief. 61-year-old male with stroke-like symptoms. He's not ambulatory. Off the fishing vessel Island Enterprise.
Bill Burwell, Lieutenant H-60 pilot at Air Station Kodiak. Yeah, I was deployed out in Cordova, and the alarm went off at about 5 o'clock in the morning, saying that we had a medevac off of a catcher processor with a patient experiencing stroke-like symptoms, approximately an hour to an hour and a half of flight time to the west of Cordova, in the vicinity of Valdez.
Any other details about the patient?
Flight doc got the call at 4:15 this morning. The goal, he said, was to get the patient to higher level care within 3 hours. We might be getting up to EMS probably right around that time.
Roger that. Scott Muscatel, AST-2, Air Station Kodiak. The survivor had symptoms of a stroke, so timing is everything. We need to get the survivor to a higher level of care.
Finding a good hoist and everything is our biggest challenge. Once we pick up the patient, flight doc said below 1,000 feet. And just getting on scene right now.
Vessel's inside and
The Island Enterprise was a large fisher catcher processor type vessel, almost 200 feet long. Probably the back 2/3 of the vessel is all dedicated to the fishing and the processing. Lots of snag hazards, lots of cables.
Here looks like a nice clear area, probably be off his starboard forward quarter. Or looking at the forward part of the bow, I do see a clear spot just in front of the bridge.
AMT-3, Zach Hamilton. I'm a H-60 mechanic. Well, I talked with the pilots about where we're going to hoist, but mainly the boat already has hoisted from there before, so they gave us the insight on where to hoist from.
Yep, they're bringing them down right now to the bow.
Roger.
Just in front of the bridge. Looks like they're ready for you.
Roger. Swimmer's ready.
Roger.
Check complete. Swimmer's going down. Swimmer's on deck. Swimmer's away. Swimmer's okay.
There was some sort of medical asset on board when I got down there. So I talked to him, got a brief, let them know what we were gonna do to hoist the survivor up. He definitely was having problems on his left-hand side, and so he was not ambulatory.
Looks like you got him. Bring him to the front. Rescue ready.
This will be the recovery of the survivor.
Litter hoist is definitely more challenging just because it's something bigger in the basket, so it's harder to bring it in, especially if the victim's heavier. Man, I'm ready for pickup.
Roger.
When I bring him up, it's probably gonna take me a minute because I gotta bring him in feet first.
If you need help bringing them in, you want me to bump the hoist down?
Yeah, I'll let you know, sir.
Okay.
Litter's clear of the vessel.
And the only whip I can't see is the one right in front of you, Zach.
Roger, we got about 5 feet.
Roger. Let me know if I can slide or anything.
You can come easy back and left if you want to, sir.
Okay, I'll come back 2 feet.
Roger.
The litter hoist can be one of the most complicated hoist evolutions that we do, and often requires all 4 crew members of the aircraft to work together in concert to really be able to successfully and safely complete the evolution. In this case, our rescue swimmer was tending the trail line on the vessel, helping control the swing of the litter. With the litter being such a large item, the flight mech will often have to back themselves into the cabin and might not be able to manipulate the hoist controls as well as they normally do. And so I helped out with that. We have a secondary hoist control on the flight controls up front, and through coordination, I talked to the flight mech and I was able to lower the hoist while he maneuvered the litter into the aircraft.
All right, sir, come easy down.
Easy down. This will be a swimmer pick up with the trail line. Go for it.
Roger that, sir. Tail line's flat for the boat hold.
Roger, come in. Okay, just let me know about that whip. I can't see it.
I will. Swimmer's underneath cabin.
We kept the aircraft low on the way to Valdez.
How's everything in the back?
Taking his blood pressure right now.
You could see drooping on his left-hand side. Definitely was feeling some numbness in his hand. You know, he was going down fast.
Pick up with the trail line. Go for it.
Roger that, sir.
5 in the morning, medevac, Cordova. We launched out. A gentleman had symptoms of a stroke. We did a litter hoist because the survivor was non-ambulatory.
Underneath cabin.
Once I got up there, I just resumed monitoring his vitals, getting him some O2. We kept the aircraft low on the way to Valdez. You could see a little bit of drooping on his left-hand side. There's also somewhat of a language barrier, so that made things sometimes a little bit more difficult.
How's everything in the back?
Taking his blood pressure right now.
It took about a half an hour to fly to Valdez. The flight itself to Valdez was a lot of low ceilings, low visibility, but that's a route we practiced quite a bit, so it was a little more comfortable than the unknown transiting to the boat.
All right, a couple planes on the parking area, but they're clear of the taxiway.
This being my first deployment to Cordova, it was pretty eye-opening to see the sheer volume of fishing boats that are there in the summer, and it kind of drives home the importance of a Coast Guard presence for that busy season. This was one of those cases that you really walk away from feeling proud and somewhat lucky that everything worked out well.
I felt very well. I think in us going out there, we saved the survivor a lot of time, and I hope that we prevented something worse from happening.
Mi nombre es Margarito Flores y trabajo en el Island Enterprise. Realmente no sabía qué me estaba pasando. Yo los considero unos héroes porque tanto a mí como a muchas personas en los barcos los ayudan, ¿no? Pues que gracias a su ayuda estoy aquí todavía.
I'm Bill Burwell. I'm a pilot at Air Station Kodiak, and I'm on vacation after a deployment in Cordova. The plan is to hike to the Power Creek cabin in the Chugach National Forest and propose to my girlfriend, Heather. Heather doesn't know anything about the proposal, and I've kind of sold her on the idea that, you know, there's a cameraman aboard because we just had a SAR case, which is partially true, but left out the part about asking her to marry me. How you feeling?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sweaty.
There's quite a bit of scenery out here in Cordova. It's beautiful. Bill and I do get out quite a bit, and we've been trying to take advantage of Alaska since we're only here for 2 years, so that's fantastic. Did you just want to hop on too, and I'll carry you down the rest of the trail?
Is that something you'd be into? Because I can totally do that. I really wasn't worried about the bears so much as the fact that I had a ring in my backpack and, you know, almost fell a few times down a cliff. But the time is right to ask her to marry me, and it seems like a cool trip to do it on. And having been now in Cordova for 2 weeks, I decided to order a ring and make everything happen in about 4 days' time.
Okay, huh?
I rehearsed my lines a few times, you know, how I was going to propose to her, and then I had to kind of lure her out onto the porch of the cabin with all the majestic waterfalls in the valley. Hey, baby.
Yeah, honey.
I love you so much. I love you so much. Will you marry me?
Honey.
By the time I actually was able to get her out on the porch, I completely mumbled something to her, and she nodded yes, and now we're engaged.
Bill's proposal went very well. It was extremely sweet, and I think I just turned around and he had the ring right there, and I pretty much was picking up what he was putting down.
Your dad said if you said no, he'd fly to Kodiak and spank you.
I never thought I would live in Alaska, and I never thought that I would get engaged in Alaska either, so those are two really exciting moments in life. Honey, I just got proposed to in stretch pants. You changed.
I'm sorry.
Pawn. All stations. This is the United States Coast Guard Sector Anchorage. Vessel Emily Rose is taking on water. Emily Rose is a 32-foot bow picker. This is United States Coast Guard Sector Anchorage out.
I'm Lieutenant John Flipwitz. I'm the aircraft commander. We were on a training flight doing an area FAM for a new pilot, transiting from Seward, Alaska back here to Cordova when we got a call from Sector Anchorage stating that there was a bow picker in the middle of Prince William Sound taking on water.
Sir, do we got ETA in that position?
She's right here. Yeah, current ETA is 3 minutes.
It just happened to work out that we were only about 6 miles away from the vessel when the call came in. So we plotted the position, figured out we could be there in about 3 minutes.
Helicopter, this is Amelia Rose. I'm right now going about 18 knots with almost full power, still carrying a lot of water.
Good copy. We're still standing by, and just want to know what your intentions are at this time.
I was just trying to get into the calm water and then see if there's a beach there or not that, you know, if I have to pull up onto. Do you have any suggestions?
At that point, we were really just standing by to see if he was going to try and run it up on the beach. Most of the beaches we saw were pretty rocky, so we did find a couple that had a sandy approach, and we relayed the positions of those beaches for him to get into calmer waters.
Coast Guard Sector Anchorage, Coast Guard Sector Anchorage, new wave. New wave, Coast Guard Sector Anchorage, until 16 minutes. Yeah, Roger, we're in sight of the helicopter in the Amelia Rose. We're probably about 2 miles astern. We'll just follow him in and stand by in case we can be of assistance. Over. Roger, we appreciate your help. Sector Anchorage out.
They had a good Samaritan vessel respond, and that vessel was about, I'd say, 10 to 15 minutes away, and they turned to follow us because they could see us overhead.
Yeah, it looks like there's actually a little bit more water in there. Is there any way you can get some villages somehow to get this pumped out?
And Amelia Rose from the Coast Guard helicopter, we do have a dewatering pump on board with us.
He found the bow hold of his boat almost 3/4 full and still rising, so he's still taking on water.
We did an indirect. Would he be able to get the pump up over the side of the boat? Looks like it's a good 4 feet or so, probably. Probably be hard to do by himself.
We got a call from Sector Anchorage stating that there was a bow picker in the middle of Prince William Sound taking on water.
Yeah, it looks like there's actually a little bit more water in there. Is there any way you can get some villages somehow?
He found the bow hold of his boat almost 3/4 full and still rising, so at that point we knew we had to get him a dewatering pump. We had a discussion. The boat was pretty small, so it was going to be hard for us to get the pump on in the first place, and he was by himself. So picking up that pump over the edge of his vessel would be pretty hard with one person.
I'm thinking it would be easier to do an indirect to the New Wave and see if they could hand it off to him. And New Wave, the Coast Guard helicopter, how many personnel do you have on board?
We have 2 people on board.
Lucky for us, there was a Good Sam vessel in the area. It was actually a research vessel that responded to the call the sector put out. So we contacted them, and they agreed to receive our pump and then transfer it boat to boat to the Amelia Rose.
All right, Amelia Rose from the Coast Guard helicopter, we're going to deliver our dewatering pump to the New Wave here, and then they can pull alongside you and hand it over. I think it's pretty difficult for you to pick that up with your freeboard there by yourself.
Now, here in Alaska, the weather and the environment can get so extreme that everyone has to look out for one another. You know, that research vessel deviated their course by almost 20 miles to come help out.
Rescue checklist complete, ready for an indirect pump deployment to the New Wave. You can begin the hoist. Deploy the pump. Roger, deploying pump. Pumps away. Pumps in the water, and it's okay. Up, back, and left 30. In command. Roger, hoist complete. All right, they got the pump over the side. There we go. And Amelia Rose from the Coast Guard helicopter, they got the pump on board the New Wave, and they'll be transferring it to you.
Pump delivery was very smooth. The New Wave got on scene. They had 2 crewmen on board, and they drove alongside the Amelia Rose and transferred it.
Coast Guard helicopter, this is Amelia Rose. We're pumping it out, and the seacock open, and water's getting in through there.
Amelia Rose from the Coast Guard helicopter, that's very good news.
I was heading into Cordova. Where do I take the pump back?
I can give you a phone number, sir. We can come down and get it from you at the pier. We're based out of Cordova as well.
We elected to stay on scene just to determine if he was going to head back with the New Wave following him. At that point, he told us that he was comfortable heading back to Cordova on his own. The New Wave was going to continue on their mission, and we were going to put him on a comm schedule. They're just going to call him every 1 hour to make sure everything is going well.
Just calls for a hot cup of Joe. Celebratory coffee. Very celebratory. You know, that was my first indirect pump delivery with an actual pump. How'd you like it? It's still kicking an object out the door. It's so awesome.
It looked like it was kind of fun just shoving that thing out. Yep.
This just goes to show you never know what's going to happen when up here. We were on a routine training flight on our way back. We were 20 minutes from landing, so it's always kind of a surprise when it happens, but it's a good feeling to know that we helped someone out even when we weren't expecting to.
I hope this guy isn't going to get used to that kind of a SAR response.
Mayday, 3 minutes later, there's a helicopter there and a good SAM.
I'm taking on water. We'll be there in 3 minutes.
My name is Gene Deschalais. I was on the Amelie Rose. The plan was to bring our fishing boat for the start of the commercial fishing season from Whittier to Cordova yesterday. So I opened the hatch, and sure enough, the thing's about 3/4 full. And I thought, if I take on much more water and the waves start coming up over the bow, I'd hate to sink this boat with me in it. So I called the Coast Guard. I just got it back from the shop where I had a little work done on it, and one of the workers there had taken one of the plugs out. I was thinking, well, I don't want to sink out here. There's no boats around. So I made the decision to call the Coast Guard. Felt like just 2 minutes and the Coast Guard helicopter flew by, and I thought, wow, that was fast. I thought, those guys are good. And it's like, oh, it was relief. It's a big day. I must admit, even now the adrenaline's still kind of flowing in me. I was just trying to relax. It's gonna be a couple more hours for me still.
This was a unique case. It's pretty rare that we actually get to talk to the people that we help. It was kind of interesting to be able to find out what happened and see it from his perspective.
I really appreciate it.
No problem. We're glad everything worked out for you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks a lot. Seeing them guys back here is very nice to thank them, and what a great job that they do. The commercial fishermen here are very appreciative of the Coast Guard. They rely on them very heavily. It's a tough area. The weather and what can happen out there, in the middle like that, and the water's, this time of year is so cold. A lot of times their only lifeline is the Coast Guard. If they wouldn't have been there, I don't think I could have saved the ship. The Coast Guard came through for me big time.